Russia's defence minister has announced a range of moves to secure Syrian airspace and protect Russia's aircraft operating there. The new measures introduced at a briefing on Monday come a week after a Russian military plane was downed over Syria, an incident Moscow has blamed on Israel.
We're sure that the implementation of these measures will cool some hot heads and will keep them from ill-judged moves that could threaten our servicemen. Otherwise, we'll be forced to react according to the situation at the time.
This is going to change things, perhaps radically. But Moscow was clear. Its pilot safety is the overwhelming concern and overshadows everything else. Firstly, Russia will now supply Syria with S-300 air defense systems within 2 weeks. And that, in and of itself, is huge. These systems are an order of magnitude more powerful, with far greater reach than anything Syria had before. This is going to make any Israeli bombing foray into Syria much more problematic. Let's not forget, Russia held off on doing this for years at Israel's request.
I want to underline that in 2013, Russia responded to Israel's request to put on hold its supplies of the S-300 to Syria. That's despite the weaponry being ready for delivery and Syrian military personnel having undergone training. Today, the situation has changed, and that is not our fault.
Secondly, Syrian air defense command centers will now be equipped with automated fire control systems, which means they'll be able to unify their entire country's air defense network, fire faster, more accurately, and above all else, these systems come with a friend or foe identification subsystem, hopefully preventing any more friendly fire incidents. Thirdly, any object, be it a missile or a jet, attacking Syria from the Mediterranean will be jammed. Its satellite navigation systems, radar, military communications, which Moscow hopes will cool hot heads and help avoid another incident like this. Syrian President Assad has been made aware of these steps. Him and Vladimir Putin had a phone conversation, and the Russian leader said he's ready to intensify efforts to improve the situation and to restore Syria's sovereignty. Putin's spokesperson also stressed that these steps are not targeted at any specific country, but rather wholly and entirely are about ensuring the safety and security of Russian pilots. Just to recap, a Russian Il-20 aircraft was patrolling on Syria's coast when 4 Israeli F-16 jets showed up. They warned the Russians of what they were doing just 1 minute before they launched their airstrike on Syria. 1 minute. Not enough time to get clear of the area. And as icing on the cake, they then took cover, concluded the Russian military, behind this Il-20 aircraft, setting it up as a target for Syrian air defense missiles, purposefully. So, as the Russians said, certain steps are now having to be taken. The situation in Syria has changed again, and not because of Moscow's actions.
Murad Gaziev reporting there. Well, let's discuss this further now and cross live to Peter Ford. He's a former British ambassador to Syria, and you're very welcome, Peter. Firstly, what's your reaction then to this deployment? I suppose it shouldn't come as any surprise.
No, after what happened, Russia was bound to react, if only to preserve its dignity and also some deterrence against possible future incidents like that. What's happened now is a severe blow to Israel. The supply of this S-300 system to Syria is going to constrain Israel's capabilities in the air for possible attacks on Syria, going to constrain them very, very considerably. Russia has been holding off on these deliveries since 2013, 2014. Why? To give Israel some incentive not to go too far in attacking Syria. But in the last 2 years, Israel has launched more than 200 air attacks on Syria. And very recently, they have become more reckless still, even breaking the taboo about attacking targets in the vicinity of Russian facilities. And this led eventually to the tragedy of the downing of the Russian plane. So Russia has said enough is enough. We have no incentive to carry on being nice to Israel. We're getting nothing out of it. So we will supply Syria with these weapons, which are now long overdue.
And how do you think Israel then will react to this latest development, given the fact it's always been against the deployment of S-300s in Syria? Is there anything it can do?
Probably not. Israel will bluster. Their defense minister is already blustering to the effect that this changes nothing, that the Israelis will continue to attack Iranian and Hezbollah targets in Syria. They will be under pressure to show that they can still do that. The situation may become very tense because the Israelis now have to show that they have some deterrent power, that they're not afraid of these new S-300s. But as the Russian spokesman said, cooler heads should now be encouraged. I think that the military people in Israel, not their political superiors, but the military people will be urging caution and time to absorb this new and for Israel awkward reality.
And you say it's an awkward reality. Presumably that's the case too for America or for France, for example, that's launched missile strikes on Syria too. I mean, they must be reassessing how they perhaps act in Syria also.
Absolutely, and if anything, the greater significance of this development is in relation to possible further Western attacks on Syria. Only a couple of weeks ago, the Western powers of France, Britain and America were actively preparing for very drastic strikes, devastating strikes on Syria under some pretext or other, not even necessarily involving chemical weapons. American spokesmen were saying, even if barrel bombs are used, we're going to stop Syria from advancing. Well, now the Americans and the French and the British have been given pause for thought. It's not only their planes that might be shot down by the S-300s, but also their missiles. And they will not be in a hurry to see Russia give a demonstration of its capacity to shoot down Western missiles.